What if I told you that McLaren is about to unleash such a radical improvement in Miami, that it could turn its worst start to the season into the biggest blow of the year in Formula One? Subscribe to continue uploading more of this type of content now if we continue. Because while everyone sees a team in crisis, its CEO has already dropped something much more disturbing. They are not trying to save the season. They are preparing a change that could completely alter the order of the grid. The beginning of this story is not simply that of a team that is performing below expectations. It is that of a giant that has collapsed so abruptly that it has forced the entire Formula One to rethink what is really happening within McLaren, because what we are seeing at this start of the 2026 season does not fit with absolutely anything we knew about them just a few months ago, when they dominated the category with authority and seemed to have found the perfect formula to stay at the top 4 years. What happened in Australia was the first alarm signal, a misleading result that masked much deeper problems, because although Lando Norris managed to rescue a 5th position, the real performance of the car already suggested that something was not working as it should, and the situation completely exploded in China, where both cars were directly out before even competing, a very hard blow not only in terms of points, but in credibility, because when a champion team cannot even start, we are no longer talking about a lack of rhythm, we are talking about failures. Serious structural. And this is where the narrative becomes even more interesting, because far from hiding the problem, McLaren has done something unusual in Formula One. Openly recognize its weaknesses, admit that the car is not extracting the performance of the new power system and that it also has clear deficiencies in curves, 2 factors that together are practically a death sentence in competitive terms if they are not corrected quickly, because they affect both the top speed and the cornering, that is, the overall performance of the car. But the most important thing about all this is not the problem itself. It is how they have decided to deal with it, because McLaren is not introducing small progressive improvements like most would do. They are not trying to patch the car race by race. What they are doing is accumulating all their development to release it in a single key moment of the season, and that moment has its own name: Miami. This completely changes the rules of the game, because it means that each previous race has been, in a way, a containment phase, a stage where the objective was not to win, but to survive, while they prepared something much bigger in the shadows, something that requires time, resources, and absolute trust in the technical direction of the team, because betting everything on a single package of improvements can turn out incredibly well, or can sink you permanently if it fails. And this is where the CEO's words come in, because they are not empty statements or messages for the gallery. They are confirmation that within McLaren there is a total conviction that this plan is going to work, that they are not improvising, that they have already traveled this path before and know exactly what they are doing. Remembering that it would not be the first time that this team takes a radical turn in its performance in the middle of the season, has already happened when they went from being one of the slowest cars to becoming an absolute reference after a package of key improvements. So Act 1 isn't about a team in crisis. It's about a team that has identified its flaws, has taken the hit, and is preparing a response that could be much bigger than anyone in the paddock is anticipating. Because while everyone is looking at the results, McLaren is quietly building something that can change everything in Miami. To understand this, you have to connect several points that at first glance seem isolated, but together they draw a much more aggressive scenario than it seems, because McLaren has not only identified its weaknesses, but has decided to attack them all at the same time, something extremely unusual in Formula One, where the normal thing is to evolve the car progressively so as not to lose the correlation between track, simulator, and wind tunnel. Here, instead, what they are preparing is a comprehensive package, a functional redesign of the car's performance that points directly to the 2 critical areas that they themselves have recognized: the efficiency of the power system and cornering performance, which implies changes that are not superficial. We are talking about modifications in how the car manages energy, how it generates downforce, and how it maintains balance in different phases of the curve. That is, a change in the identity of the car. And this is what makes it so dangerous, because when a team tries to correct everything at once, it usually does so from a position of desperation. But in this case there is a nuance that changes everything. McLaren insists that the foundation of the car is solid, which means that they are not rebuilding from scratch. They are unlocking performance that already exists but that they are not being able to extract with the current configuration. These types of situations are the most feared in Formula One, because when you find that hidden performance, the jump is not progressive. It is sudden. It is the type of improvement that from one race to another makes you go from fighting for 5th place to fighting for victories without a clear transition. And that is exactly what we already saw in the recent past with this same team, when an update completely changed its position on the grid. Now, what is really revealing is not only in the technical part, but in the message that is being sent from within the team, because when the CEO talks about winning again soon, he does not do so as a distant possibility, he poses it as a direct consequence of the work they are doing right now, and that in a context of such negative results can only be interpreted in one way. They have already seen in data what the car can be. And this is where the real fear begins for its rivals, because if that Miami package works as they expect, McLaren would not only solve their problems, it could appear with a completely different car, one that combines the aggressiveness of its development with a base that was already a champion, which would generate an extremely difficult scenario for the rest of the teams to counteract in such a short time. Because while other teams are optimizing details, McLaren is betting on a leap in performance. And when that type of bet goes well, it doesn't just change one team, it changes the entire season. Because if there is something that Formula One has shown time and time again, it is that changes in hierarchy are not always gradual, sometimes they occur abruptly, almost violently, and when that happens, the impact is not only technical, it is psychological, strategic, and competitive for the entire paddock. If McLaren arrives in Miami and suddenly solves its problems of energy efficiency and cornering performance, what we would have is not a simple improvement, but the appearance of a completely different car than the one we have seen in the first races, a car capable of maximizing the potential that was already hidden in its base, and that means that they would literally go from containing damage to attacking victories, and this is what makes it a terrifying scenario for its rivals, because there would be no immediate room for reaction. The other teams will have followed their normal development, optimizing small details, while McLaren could introduce a leap in performance that breaks all the references they had up to that point, forcing them to rethink their own concepts in the middle of the season. But there is something even more important, and it is the domino effect that this can generate, because if McLaren suddenly becomes competitive again, they not only enter the fight for races, they completely reactivate the championship, change the strategies, force the leading teams to take more risks, and above all, they introduce a variable that no one had considered after the first races, that the team that seemed to be out actually never was. Furthermore, there is a factor that many are overlooking, and that is that this type of recovery has a brutal internal impact, because a team that goes from failing to winning in a matter of weeks becomes extremely dangerous, confidence skyrockets, decisions become more aggressive, and execution improves, and that amplifies performance on the track even more. That is why the CEO's words should not be taken as simple motivational statements. They are the reflection of an internal certainty, of a team that has already seen in its data, in its simulations, in its development, that the car can take a huge leap, and now everything depends on that package working in real conditions. And if it works, Miami won't be just another race. It will be the moment when McLaren goes from being a disappointment to becoming the biggest threat in the championship. Because when a champion team finds a way to unlock its performance, it doesn't come back little by little, come back to destroy. And in the end, it all comes down to a single question that will define not only McLaren's destiny, but the entire course of the season. Because Miami will not be just another race on the calendar, it will be the point where we will know if everything they have been building in silence was really the key to unleashing the potential of this car, or if, on the contrary, we are facing a desperate attempt that could go horribly wrong. But if this team has made anything clear to us in recent years, it is that when they seem to be on the ropes, that is when they are most dangerous, when they make the most aggressive decisions, and when they are capable of completely changing the narrative in a matter of a single weekend, and now they are right at that point again. The CEO's statements are not a coincidence, they are not smoke, they are the reflection of a confidence that is born from data, from simulations, from hours and hours of development that we have not seen, but that can manifest themselves suddenly on the track. And when that happens in Formula One, the impact is not progressive, it is immediate. So everything is served for a moment that can mark a before and after, because if this package of improvements fulfills what they promise internally, McLaren will not only return to the fight, it could become the team that everyone feared from the beginning. And then we will understand that this disastrous beginning was not the end of anything. It was simply the prelude to something much bigger. Subscribe to continue uploading more of that content. Now you really think about all this.